There are moments in life when the fabric of reality seems to thin, when a flicker of déjà vu lingers too long. A dream echoes with uncanny precision, or a stranger's face carries the weight of a forgotten memory. These are not mere coincidences, but faint signals, like distant radio waves from a frequency just beyond our usual perception. And among these signals, one message stands out like a flare in the dark. If you see this, your parallel version is trying to reach you. And now, are you ready to begin? To speak of parallel versions of oneself is to step into a labyrinth where every turn reveals another reflection, another possibility. The idea is not new. Mythology, philosophy, and modern physics have all danced around it in their own ways. But the notion that these alternate selves might actively seek contact adds a layer of urgency to the exploration. What are the core principles underlying this phenomenon? What universal truths might we uncover if we dare to peer beyond the veil of the singular I? At the heart of this concept lies the principle of infinite divergence. Imagine life as a river, constantly branching into smaller streams, each representing a choice, made or unmade. Some splits are barely noticeable, whether you turned left or right on an evening walk, whether you spoke or stayed silent in a passing conversation. Others are vast chasms, the road not taken, the love not pursued, the life not lived. In a multiverse where every possibility manifests, there exists a version of you who followed each of those paths. And if consciousness is not bound by the linear illusion of time, then perhaps, under the right conditions, these selves can brush against one another like leaves trembling in the same unseen wind. But why would they reach out? The answer may lie in the second core theme, resonant entanglement. Just as quantum particles can remain mysteriously linked across vast distances, so too might different versions of the same consciousness share an invisible tether. A version of you who suffered greatly might send back warnings in the form of dreams, gut feelings, or inexplicable dread before a decision. A version who achieved something extraordinary might transmit flashes of inspiration, sudden clarity, or a sense of being guided. These are not random intrusions, but messages born from the same root, an instinctual drive toward survival, growth, or completion. This leads us to the third pillar, the mutability of identity. We like to believe that we are fixed, coherent beings, that the you of 10 years ago and the you of tomorrow are fundamentally the same entity. But what if identity is more fluid? What if the self is not a monolith, but a chorus, a collective of near-identical voices singing variations of the same song? When a parallel version reaches out, they are not an outsider, but a part of the whole, a strand of your own consciousness vibrating at a different frequency. Recognizing this shatters the illusion of isolation and redefines intuition, déjà vu, and even so-called past life memories as something far more intimate, fragments of other yous bleeding through. Yet, if these connections exist, why are they not constant? Why do we not live in a perpetual state of overlapping selves? Here we encounter the fourth theme, the permeability of veils. The barriers between versions of ourselves are not solid walls, but shifting membranes, thinned by certain conditions, moments of extreme emotion, altered states of awareness, or points of synchronistic alignment. A near-death experience might briefly merge your awareness with a version who did not survive. A deep meditation might allow whispers from a wiser, older self to surface. Even something as simple as a song, a scent, or a place charged with personal meaning can act as a temporary bridge, letting through what would otherwise be filtered out by the noise of ordinary life. Finally, there is the question of purpose. If parallel versions are communicating, what is the larger intention? Is it merely survival, a cosmic game of telephone where each self tries to steer the others away from disaster? Or is there something more collaborative at work? Some esoteric traditions suggest that the ultimate goal of consciousness is reintegration, that all possible versions of the self are destined in time to merge into a higher, unified awareness. In this view, every message, every flicker of insight is a step toward that wholeness, a reminder that we are not just individuals, but participants in a grander unfolding. These themes, infinite divergence, resonant entanglement, mutable identity, permeable veils, and cosmic purpose, form the foundation of understanding parallel contact. They suggest that reality is far stranger and more interconnected than our day-to-day perceptions allow. But this is only the framework. To truly grasp the depth of what it means when a parallel version reaches out, we must move beyond theory and into the realm of story, symbol, and lived experience. Stories have always been the vessels of deeper truths, myths, and legends that encode realities too vast for straightforward explanation. When we speak of parallel versions of ourselves reaching across the veils of existence, we enter a realm where metaphor becomes necessary, where the intangible must be clothed in narrative to be understood. What tales might illuminate this phenomenon? What ancient patterns resurface when we examine the idea of selves whispering to one another across the branches of time? The mirror and the shadow. In many traditions, mirrors are not mere objects, but gateways, thin places where the boundary between worlds grows fragile. There is a reason why folklore warns against gazing too long into one's own reflection, why some say a mirror can trap a soul or reveal a face that is not quite yours. Consider the tale of a woman who, late one night, catches her reflection blinking out of sync. At first, she dismisses it as fatigue, but then the reflection smiles when she does not, mouths words she cannot hear. Days later, she finds herself inexplicably avoiding a route she normally takes, only to learn that, had she gone that way, she would have been caught in a terrible accident. Was her reflection a guardian? A parallel self who had already lived that tragedy, sending back a silent warning? This narrative echoes an older truth, that what we perceive as other may in fact be a hidden aspect of ourselves. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of our psyche we disown or suppress. But what if the shadow is not just psychological, but dimensional, a version of us who made different choices, who carries what we have rejected? When we encounter these reflections, whether in dreams, visions, or eerie moments of synchronicity, we are not meeting a stranger. We are meeting the self we might have been, or the self we might yet become. The library of forgotten paths. Imagine a vast, infinite library where every book is a life you could have lived. Some volumes are thick, their pages filled with the weight of decades. The life where you stayed in your hometown, married your first love, grew old in familiar streets. Others are slender, cut short by tragedy or redirection. The life where you took that flight that never landed, where you said yes instead of no to a fateful offer. Now imagine that sometimes a page from one of those books slips loose and drifts into your hands. This is how parallel contact often manifests, not as a full conversation, but as fragments, flashes of memory that don't belong to you, skills you've never learned yet suddenly possess, or an unshakable certainty about a path you've never walked. There are accounts of people who, in moments of crisis, experience a surge of knowledge they shouldn't have. A pianist who, mid-performance, plays a complex piece flawlessly despite never studying it, only to later learn it was composed by an alternate version of themselves in another timeline. These are not miracles but leaks, moments when the library's shelves tremble and a page from another story finds its way into yours. The lighthouse and the storm. Some interactions between parallel selves are not subtle. There are stories, some modern, some ancient, of individuals who, in moments of despair, encounter a mysterious guide. This figure feels inexplicably familiar, offers advice that cuts to the core of their struggle, and then vanishes, leaving no trace. In some traditions, these are called the Watchers, or the Hidden Ones, beings who intervene at critical junctures. But what if they are not external entities at all, but future or alternate versions of the very people they aid? Consider the sailor lost in a storm, guided to safety by a lone lighthouse that appears where no lighthouse should be. Years later, he becomes a keeper of lights, only to one day spot a ship in distress, the same ship he once sailed on in his youth. The moment he recognizes it, the storm around him shifts, and he understands. The lighthouse that saved him was his own. This is the paradox of a parallel contact. The Savior and the saved may be the same soul, separated only by time, choice, and the illusion of separation. The symphony of selves. Perhaps the most profound metaphor is that of music. Imagine consciousness as a great symphony, where every possible version of you is an instrument playing the same melody in a different key. Normally, you hear only your own note, clear and singular. But sometimes the harmonies align through meditation, crisis, love, or sheer synchronicity, and for a moment, you hear the whole chord. That ache of nostalgia for a place you've never been. That sudden, unprovoked joy when you pass a stranger who feels like family. These are the echoes of other instruments in the symphony, other versions of you living their lives in concert with yours. The grand theories and symbolic narratives are captivating, but what happens when we step out of the realm of abstraction and into the messiness of daily life? If parallel versions of ourselves are indeed reaching through the veil, how do we recognize their signals? More importantly, how do we respond in a way that enriches rather than destabilizes our existence? Recognizing the signal in the noise. The first challenge is discernment. Not every random thought or coincidence carries cosmic weight. The human mind excels at finding patterns, even where none exist. Yet dismissing every anomaly as imagination risks deafening ourselves to genuine guidance. So how do we distinguish ordinary mental chatter from something more? There is a particular quality to these moments of contact, a resonance that lingers, a dream that stays vivid for years, a gut feeling that defies logic but proves uncannily accurate, a name or symbol that repeats in your life with eerie persistence. These phenomena often share certain markers, emotional charge. They carry an inexplicable weight, like a memory that isn't yours but feels intimately personal. Clarity amid confusion. They arrive with a sudden, unshakable certainty, even if the message itself is cryptic. Synchronicity. They tend to coincide with pivotal moments, as if timed to intersect with your crossroads. Learning to recognize these signals is like tuning a radio. At first, there's static, but with practice, the frequency becomes clearer. Dialoguing with the other you. If we accept that these encounters are real, the next question is practical. How does one communicate back? The answer may lie in techniques humanity has used for millennia to access deeper layers of consciousness. Dream incubation, before sleep, setting an intention to connect, often with a specific question or request for guidance. Historical figures from ancient Greek seekers to Nikola Tesla used this method to solve problems through dream revelations, automatic writing or drawing, allowing the hand to move without conscious direction, bypassing the analytical mind. Many artists and inventors have credited their breakthroughs to this semi-trance state. Meditative mirror work, gazing into one's own eyes in low light, a practice found in both Western esotericism and Eastern mysticism, which can produce startling visionary experiences. These methods share a common thread, creating conditions where the usual boundaries of self grow porous, making room for other aspects of consciousness to emerge. When warnings come, navigating precognitive signals. Some of the most dramatic accounts involve parallel selves apparently intervening to prevent disaster. The person who misses their flight due to a random delay, only to learn it crashed. The woman who dreams of a car accident in precise detail days before it nearly happens. If such warnings occur, how should we respond without becoming paralyzed by paranoia? The key lies in balanced awareness. Acknowledge without obsession. Note the warning. Take reasonable precautions, but avoid fixating. Look for symbolic meaning. Sometimes the disaster being averted is metaphorical, e.g., a career misstep rather than physical danger. Trust, but verify. Cross-reference intuitive hits with practical reality checks. This approach mirrors how professional intuitives operate, honoring the information while maintaining grounded discernment. The creative spark, tapping alternate talents. Many innovators describe their breakthroughs as downloads, sudden insights that feel transmitted rather than constructed. What if these moments represent collaboration with parallel selves who mastered what we have yet to learn? There are striking cases. A novelist who channels entire chapters in a voice distinctly different from her own. A self-taught musician who plays complex compositions after vivid dreams of performing on stage. A mathematician who solves problems in his sleep that baffle him awake. Practical applications emerge, keeping a parallel selves journal to record unexpected skills or knowledge flashes. Setting creative challenges before sleep with intent to receive input. Approaching blocks by asking, how would a version of me who solved this approach it? Relationship ripples. When others' parallels appear. These phenomena aren't limited to solo experiences. Many report encounters with people who feel like alternate versions of someone they know. A stranger with a loved one's mannerisms, a friend who momentarily seems like a different person. Some relationship conflicts may even stem from unconsciously reacting to a partner's other versions. Strategies for navigating this: recognizing projection, disentangling genuine resonance from psychological transference. Conscious reconciliation when tensions arise, considering whether you're reacting to who they are or who they might have been. Sacred contracts, viewing relationships as multidimensional connections that see or of growth across realities. The ethics of interdimensional influence. If we can receive guidance from other versions of ourselves, do we owe them something in return? This raises profound questions. Are we altering their realities when we heed or ignore their warnings? Does intense focus on one path weaken others or strengthen the entire web? What responsibility comes with accessing knowledge from selves who may have suffered for it? These aren't just philosophical musings, they shape how we engage with the phenomenon. Approaching contact with respect, gratitude, and clear boundaries may be crucial. Building a multiversal life practice. Integrating these ideas doesn't require abandoning rationality. Simple daily practices can honor the connection while keeping feet firmly planted. Synchronicity logs, tracking meaningful coincidences to identify patterns. Decision check-ins, pausing to sense if choices align with the whole chorus of selves. Threshold rituals, marking major transitions by symbolically consulting other versions. The goal isn't to live in constant awe of the multiverse, but to let its existence inform a richer, more flexible way of being, one that acknowledges we are both singular and infinite. We stand now at the edge of revelation, where the theoretical, the symbolic, and the practical converge into a single, undeniable truth. You are both the sender and the receiver in this grand cosmic dialogue. The message, if you see this, your parallel version is trying to reach you, is not just a statement, but an invitation to awaken to the vastness of your own existence. The illusion of separation. Throughout history, humanity has grappled with the boundaries of self. We once believed the earth was flat, the stars fixed, the mind confined to the brain. Each revelation shattered these illusions, expanding our understanding of reality. Now we face perhaps the most intimate frontier yet, the realization that the I we cling to is far more fluid than we imagined. The parallel versions of you are not distant strangers. They are echoes and variations like light refracted through a prism, distinct yet born of the same source. When they reach out, it is not across some unfathomable void, but from just beneath the surface of your everyday awareness. The separation was always an illusion, a trick of perception necessary for the singular human experience. But now, the veil is thinning, the call to wholeness. This is not merely about receiving warnings or creative inspiration from alternate selves. It is about recognizing that every version of you exists for a reason, that each path taken or untaken contributes to a greater totality of being. Some traditions call this the soul's journey. Others frame it as the universe exploring itself through infinite possibilities. Whatever the language, the implication is the same. You are meant to integrate these whispers, not as curiosities, but as missing pieces of your own becoming. Consider this. The version of you that never took that risk might be urging you toward courage. The version that succumbed to despair might be pleading with you to hold on. The version that achieved greatness might be showing you what's possible. They are not separate from your growth. They are your growth, manifesting across dimensions. Living as the nexus. To fully step into this understanding is to become a nexus, a point where multiple timelines converge and communicate. This doesn't require esoteric rituals, though they can help. It begins with a shift in perception. See coincidences as communications. When patterns repeat, when chance encounters feel fated, pause. Ask, what is being shown to me? Treat intuition as interdimensional dialogue. That sudden knowing, that inexplicable dread or joy, practice trusting it as you would a trusted friend's advice. Approach life as a collaborative work. Major decisions can be made not just by weighing pros and cons, but by asking, which path serves the highest good of all my selves? This is how we honor the connection, by living with the awareness that every choice ripples across realities. The responsibility of connection. With this awareness comes responsibility. If parallel selves can influence us, might we also influence them? The answer is almost certainly yes. Your moments of breakthrough, your hard-won wisdom, your triumphs over darkness. These too may be guiding other versions of you through their own trials. This transforms personal growth from a solitary pursuit into a sacred duty. When you heal, others heal. When you awaken, others awaken. The lines between you and them blur into irrelevance, because at the deepest level, you are the same consciousness experiencing itself from infinite angles. A challenge to the brave. And so we arrive at the transformational call, not as a demand, but as an offering to those who feel ready. Begin living as if you are already in dialogue with your other selves. Start small. Tonight, before sleep, ask a question to your wiser versions. Tomorrow, notice where coincidence seems to nudge you. When faced with a crossroads, imagine consulting the you who took each possible path. This is not fantasy. It is the birth of a new kind of awareness. With time and attention, what once seemed like imagination may reveal itself as the most real conversation you've ever had. The ultimate revelation. In the end, the message is not just that parallel versions are trying to reach you, but that you are trying to reach yourself. Across time, across dimensions, across every possible life, your consciousness is calling itself home. The question that remains is simple. Will you answer?